Folks making their way back to the Capitol to kick off this year's legislative session with civil disobedient protests. We've got the latest on Moral Monday.
Plus, Florida Governor Rick Scott will give his State of the State speech tomorrow, and among the topics, tax cuts. We've got a preview.
Dozens of these flower arrangements are heading to the Capitol, but florists aren't the only ones that will benefit from this year's legislative session. We're taking a look at the impact on the local economy.
Live from the WTXL studios, this is ABC 27's News at 5.
We've got some breaking news tonight. Good evening. I'm Abby Maurer.
And I'm Rockman Johnson. Tonight, former Valdosta police officer Michael Linger was indicted by a Lowndes County grand jury for 2 counts of sexual exploitation of children. Now, we're just getting this news in. The indictment stems from an investigation that culminated back in October. It was conducted by the Lowndes County District Attorney's Office and the U.S. Department of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, Linger was investigated for being in possession of visual mediums depicting minors under the age of 18 in different positions. We're working closely to get the details on this information. We'll be sure to update you on air and online once more becomes available.
New information tonight regarding the resignation of former Leon County Assistant Superintendent Paul Byrd Jr.
Now, what we're understanding about Byrd is that he has since resigned from his position. He was arrested Friday in Franklin County.
He was pulled over for a traffic violation when a canine began to sniff around his vehicle and alerted officers to the smell of narcotics. Officers say they searched Byrd's truck and found about 31 grams of cocaine, 8 different types of controlled prescription drugs, and a set of digital scales. Byrd is currently being charged with trafficking in controlled substance, 8 counts of possession of a controlled substance, and a possession of drug paraphernalia charge. Now, parents of Leon County school children say this is concerning to them, and we'd like to know what you think about Byrd's arrest. Just go to our Facebook page and leave us a comment or tweet us at ABC27. Your comments could make it on the air.
In just hours, the state of Florida will be holding their legislative session, and people are making their voices heard.
We must stand up. We must vote like never before.
Hundreds of people gathered at the Capitol today for a day of protest. The crowd, some of them coming from out of state, are pushing lawmakers to address major issues like voting rights, of course, the Stand Your Ground law, and Medicaid. Now, today, thousands came from near and far to attend Moral Monday. Here's a quick fact check about Moral Monday. It was started in 2012 by the NAACP, and it was designed to protest laws enforced by North Carolina's governor and legislators. Since then, Moral Monday has become a nationwide event that usually is held the Monday before legislative sessions begin at different houses around and senates around the country. Now, some of the key legislative issues for the Florida legislature this session include health care and Medicaid expansion, rights for felons returning back to society, jobs, education, voter rights, and public safety. Now, one of the most pressing issues is something that we've heard a lot about over the past few weeks, the Stand Your Ground law. Dwight Bullard of the Florida Senate reflects on how the NAACP is responding to these issues in the state.
They've been here consistently pushing, whether it be Martin Lee Anderson, whether it be Trayvon Martin, Marissa Alexander, whether it be fights for education or expanded health care. NAACP has really been in the forefront.
Senator Bullard is even pushing for some new legislation of his own. We'll have a recap on what the legislature will be looking to do. That's tonight on the news at 11.
And Governor Rick Scott will make his State of the State speech tomorrow, kicking off the 60-day session. Scott will address a number of topics during the speech, but tax cuts and college tuition rates are expected to be the most pressing. That includes asking for more than $500 million in tax and fee cuts this year. He also wants to keep college tuition rates flat. He's expected to ask legislators to repeal laws that allow universities to raise tuition above set rates. Dr. Carol Weissert from Florida State University also thinks the governor may hit on education.
The tax cuts are currently been important, and tuition rates. Education, I think he will talk about. He wants to put more money in K through 12 education. All these 3 issues are all good political issues, all good campaign issues. So, you know, I don't think that's forgotten on the governor. I'm also going to be looking to see if he talks at all about the environment.
This will be Governor Scott's 4th State of the State speech.
Lawmakers will also be looking at gun laws and gambling, but one of the things that is taking precedent is the state employee health insurance program. The governor is also trying to address that issue as well. Now, there are some possible new high deductible plans that could affect more than 170,000 policyholders across the state. Governor Scott has asked the Department of Management Services to put the option in the state group health insurance plan that would allow for health reimbursement accounts as part of the proposed budget. Now, the proposal calls for the Department of Management Services to come up with a budget-neutral plan that would include increased employee cost sharing. Now, the plan is due out July 1st, and statewide implementation would begin January 9th. What we're understanding, of course, the legislative session is starting out, and finding out what the legislative session is about this time has been very interesting. Because the session has moved so quickly, it seems like lawmakers say it came upon them quicker than they anticipated. Well, of course, they got to have somewhere to stay and they got to have something to eat, which is a major economic impact for the city. Jay Balexa took a closer look at what the legislative session means for Tallahassee.
I spoke with the Tallahassee Downtown Improvement Authority, and the executive director, Jay Revel, tells me that businesses like hotels and restaurants make about 1/3 of their annual revenue during session. And the days and months leading up to session also mean money. And you can bet Andrew's restaurant will be jam-packed just like this all session long. Businesses not in the downtown also thrive, like Blossom's Flowers. Lots of people ordering flowers that are being delivered to the Capitol to welcome lawmakers as they get to work.
Well, Valentine's in the floral industry is the biggest holiday, then typically followed by Mother's Day. But legislative session actually outranks Easter. We have more orders coming in for legislature than we do during the Easter holiday. So we're happy to have the legislative business.
And the 60-day legislative session begins tomorrow. Jade Balexa, WTXL ABC 27, dedicated to you.
Well, as the Florida legislative session begins to kick off, MoveOn.org is working to make sure that uninsured Floridians have health insurance. And they say one of the reasons that they don't is because some of the policies of the governor. Joining us right now is Mrs. Roan, who's with MoveOn.org. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And one of the things, MoveOn is going to have a rally tomorrow at the Capitol.
Yes, sir.
Why is the rally taking place?
The rally is very important. It is to expose our billboard. It is on North Monroe, 903 North Monroe. You will see it. And it is to make people aware of the expansion of Medicaid. Unfortunately, we have a lot of Floridians that really do not understand what is happening, why so many is falling through the crack, and also because when we are sent to Medicaid, we have to fill out the application, but we're not telling why. In a sense, we cannot come aboard.
And there are 700,000 people throughout Florida,
yes, sir,
that are in this gap where
falling through the gap.
They make too much money to get on Medicaid.
Or make not enough.
Okay.
Okay, if you're making a certain amount of annual income, you can apply on the healthcare market,
right,
and get your discounts through there.
And subsidies.
And subsidies through, right, your tax returns.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you are labeled up under the poverty level, is which most people that's on Social Security that gets the minimum, is which is $733, falls below the poverty level. So they send you to Medicaid.
Now, there is much more of that conversation with Mrs. Roan. She talked about why it's important that people get involved. That full interview will be up on our website in just a bit. Check with us after the show at site WTXL.tv.